Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us in today's episode on the Teens for Business podcast. I'm your host, Kylan.
I'm Ivan.
I'm Jackie.
And I'm Jack.
Today, we'll be talking about spending habits for teens and how to balance saving and spending. So, money is a very important part of most teenagers' lives. And as we get older, we're no longer relying on our parents to pay for everything we want. So, an average US teen spends about $2,300 per year and spends the most money on clothing and food. So, we're going to take a deep dive into basically how teens spend and save majority of their money. So where does like your guys' own money come from? Jobs, parents? Where does that come from?
For me, well, I don't really uh like when I do have to spend money, it probably does come from my parents. Um, but I might get. I'm looking. Probably would look for a job in the future before college, definitely.
Yeah, no, me too. I think most of the money I spend come from my parents, but I do have like money on the side from like competitions or like I have this internship, so I got like this stipend. So like if it's for that or like they're like, Jackie, you don't need that. We're not buying you that. That's kind of where it comes from. But for just like regular things or like a new coat or like a something like that, like a new computer or something they think I need, usually that they'll buy it for me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as both Ivan and Jackie. If I desperately need something that's definitely gonna help me out, like my parents would pay for it. But also if I like want to like go outside with my friends and like spend money, and my parents usually allocate the funds necessary for me to do so.
Yeah, that's true. I have a job right now. I coach basketball, and so like majority of the money I'm spending is on food and like clothes and stuff. And my parents don't usually pay for that because it's like extra stuff that I don't really need, but I just like want. So if like my parents are only paying for like basically my necessities, that's just yeah. And how do you guys usually spend your money? What do you guys spend your money on?
Uh, like over the summer, I definitely spend more money on stuff because, you know, summer. But it was mostly on food, a little bit of clothes, but all the entertainment stuff also is needs a lot of money.
Yeah, me too. I'm not that big of a food person. I mean, obviously, if we go out to dinner with friends or something, obviously there's that, but like just I'm not that big of a like snack spender kind of thing. But like I do usually spend most of my money on like clothing or like beauty items, things like that. I think clothing is a really big part. Just like if you go to the mall or like you're online, I think that's what I usually do.
Yeah, for me, I think just usually spend my money when I'm like hanging out with my friends or like buying like stuff like on a whim. Like for clothing, when I get clothing, my parents like usually buy it for me. But like for food, when I like go out to like eat, I normally use my own money.
Hmm. And like when you're just like shopping, like what do you usually like see? Like how do you like measure like if something is like too expensive or not? What's your like typical like you just look at something, how like what would you like not buy typically?
Uh,
Here, go ahead.
but like when I on a rare occasion I do go shopping, um, prices definitely do shock me sometimes. But I think mostly it comes from parents, uh, because parents will be like, "Hey, this is this amount of money," and then you kind of like get the kind of extrapolate that, and then when you go out by yourself without your parents, then it's suddenly okay. My parent told me that this is this much money, so it's over that and it's too expensive. So that's where most of my money sense actually comes from, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of I kind of spend my money on the same things, so like clothing and like makeup. So I kind of already have an estimate of like, okay, a good coat is a couple $100s, but like a regular t-shirt should not be that expensive. And then the same goes for like beauty items. I think, but a lot of it, like even from the beginning, was from like Ivan said, parents, and like, okay, this makes sense to spend, or like that is way too expensive. You can get it somewhere else for much cheaper. But I think like once you kind of like, because I shop in basically the same stores, basically the same categories of products. So like just after years of it, I kind of know like, oh, that is not worth it, or like, oh, that's kind of a steal. So just experience maybe.
Yeah, definitely echo the point of experience. I don't actually really shop a lot. Like even when I like buy like food, I don't normally like do it that often. Like because like my parents like provide me with like everything that I need. But like if I see something that's like evidently like a scam, sometimes I like to like compare prices like online to see like, oh, is it easier to buy through like Amazon or something like that. If if so, then that's what I do with like when I want to like buy a book. If like a book in a store is like one price, but the price on like Amazon is like a little bit less, I normally get it through Amazon. So like to be honest, like how expensive is like the more expensive? I just like compare prices. Basically, that's what I do.
Yeah. For me, I'm like the type of person when I'm shopping for clothes, I care about brand names. So when I'm shopping, like my parents get mad at me for this, but I usually spend quite a bit. And like in terms like I personally think that like even though it is my like my own money technically from my job, like they still get mad at me for like spending it because they think like I don't have like a sense of like saving. But like I usually my like usual rule for like saving is like I'll usually save or invest 40% of 40% of total what I make, and then the rest is just for me to spend like whenever I want to. That's my basic rule. Do you guys
Oh, so you
have like
like you punch into a spreadsheet and be like 40%.
basically I
So
yeah,
are you like really strict on it?
yeah, I just like the 40% is just allocated for investing. It goes straight to my investment account, basically. Like I have like I just send that 40% to my investment account, and then the rest of the money in my like checkings account in my bank account I can just use.
Mm. I mean, what you said about like the brand name stuff, that's like something I really relate to. But I'm not like you. I don't have like a Excel sheet with all of my stuff. I think a lot of it for me is more like just my own feelings of like, oh, okay, I spent this much money this month. I probably shouldn't do that again. So next month I like kind of control it a little bit more. But I don't have like straight numbers of like, okay, like this month I spent 40%. It's like next month I only can spend 20%. It's a lot more like, oh, that was kind of a lot. Let me not do that again. And it's a lot more about like just what I feel like is the right thing. Also, like for the brand stuff, I think the branding, like the value proposition of it is kind of important. Like that might be kind of irresponsible to say, but I think like if it's a good brand and you're getting good quality and it lasts you like a couple of years, like 4 or 5 years, then I think it's like worth it. Because like the same for me, like clothing at least, if you're buying something high quality versus something that's fast fashion, it's like that fast fashion piece isn't going to last you very long and it's not very sustainable. So you might as well splurge a little bit and get like a better quality thing versus like something you have to buy 5 times over just because the first piece you bought was really bad. So
Oh yeah, that actually reminds me of one of my friends. He's a senior. Well, and like he kind of got into like crypto kind of online stuff, mystery boxes kind of stuff, and then he works a job, but he spends all that money onto those things, and he kind of loses most of it. But that's just one out of like the many people I know. But sometimes spending habits are definitely very special to each person.
Yeah, definitely. For me, at least, like, I don't, I like save like all my money unless like need to like use it necessarily for like anything. Like, if I want to like hang out or do something, if I need to like get something and I want to save up for something my parents would not support me buying, then maybe I'd like save up for that. But like most of the time, the most of money I make, I just save until I just need to use it. And if I deem like necessary that I could like allocate some of the funding into like, for example, my investing accounts or just like for like general fun stuff, like I just do it.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and in terms of like online shopping or like going in person, what do you guys usually do?
Well, I definitely prefer online shopping because there's much more like in the Bay, like you have at most two malls that everyone goes to. But like online, there's so many more options and sometimes much more cheaper. So usually I prefer definitely online, which also like you can compare stuff online. You can see like, oh, here they're selling this for like $5, and then on this other website where it's other vendor, they're selling it for $2. So that's sometimes another reason why people like me prefer online.
I have very strong opinions on this. It might be a regional thing, but I literally do not like online shopping at all. And I love shopping, so it's kind of like a interesting contrast. But I feel like if you're in person, you get to like for clothing at least, and for like makeup stuff, like the two things I buy most, you get much more of like a feel for what the product is. Cause like sometimes online you see something and it's like, whoa, that looks so pretty, or like wow, I would love to wear that. And then you get it in the mail and it's like kind of ugly and like the material is just off. Then you're like, you're so disappointed. But like if you're in person, you can like see it, you can feel it, you can like make an accurate decision on if you actually want that thing or not. Because like if you're online and you get it, like if you don't like it, like you either have to stick with it and be like, I guess I'll wear it. But then if you really don't like it, you have to like go return it, and that's like a whole kind of hassle. So I think like online shopping is just not as convenient. It's not like as easy to get the stuff you like. I mean, it might depend on where you live, because where I live, there's like a couple big shopping areas I can go, like Outlet Mall. There's a couple malls. So it's kind of pretty convenient for me in person. So maybe that's like a location thing.
For me, I'm not really a shopper person, so I can't really like really have a say. For me at least it depends on like what the product is. So for me, if it's like a shoe or any like type of like clothing or anything like you want to like see it in person before you buy it, I definitely prefer like in-person shopping. If it's like some like online thing that you normally had and you've like bought before and it's been generally been pretty good, then I feel like online is like more efficient. And also online could be like also like more like cost saving on like certain products. As I said before, I've had an experience in a bookstore where where I've seen like the online Amazon prices are cheaper than the prices that are in the store. And since it's like just a book, so like you can like just get it online and maybe wait a few days before you get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like Ivan said, like in the Bay Area, there's like two malls. Like one is Valley Fair, where these people just go to, and then in terms of, like, going to the mall. When you go to the mall, it's like you rarely actually. I found that like I rarely actually buy stuff when I'm there. I'm just usually there with friends. We're just walking around. But like online shopping, that's where I actually like buy most of my stuff. And do you like when you if you guys do like online shop, do you guys like use like like Honey, like the Chrome extensions that like help you save money? Do you guys like ever use that, or do you like just do you guys not use those?
I mean, I know of it, but I don't really use it. I see a lot of ads for it.
Yeah, I don't use Honey because I have my own suspects about how the platform works.
To be honest, I didn't really hear of those like Chrome extension like advertising like they're like saving money extensions until now, so I can't really say anything.
Yeah. Right. And then like what time of the year would you guys say you typically probably spend the most?
Definitely summer. Because like that's when like school doesn't exist anymore in my head. So that's when stuff like seeing stuff that are stimulating actually works.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But I also think for me, in summer, the two sides of summer are when I spend the most. Like right at the end of the school year and like the beginning of summer, I'm like, okay, I get to take a break. Like I'm just gonna go and like splurge on something. And then towards like the middle and like July, like that kind of just cools down and it's like, yeah, I already spent a lot of money last month, don't really need to do anything this month. And then before school starts, like at the end of summer, again, I start like thinking like, okay, I'm not going to have a lot more time in the future. I'm going to be really busy, so I might as well go and buy everything that I want now. So I think like the two sides of summer are like the biggest spending times.
For me, generally, I spend more in summer and maybe a little bit winter because like I get a lot of money from my parents then through like Christmas or sometimes even Lunar New Year, so I get like the freedom to like spend a little bit. But generally, I definitely think that summer is like the time where I spend the most.
Yeah, I probably agree. I think during this last summer, I was like buying boba like every almost like 3 times a week. I was just cutting into my money. It was like it was getting to a point where I just had to like stop completely because I was just running out of money. So like summer is like you don't have school. You just at if you're not like if you're at home, you have not like you don't have much to do. You want to buy food, and that's when you spend a lot of your money. And there's a stat that I've seen where like teens that do have jobs like spend almost like $3,000 more per year. And do you think like um do you think like getting a do you think this is like reasonable for for teens who do get jobs?
I mean, for teens who have jobs, it's kind of like I earned this money. This money is mine. I can do whatever I want. As compared to like, I'm sitting at home and then my parents every week give me this amount of money. It's kind of not mine, even though they gave it to me. So it's kind of different from having an allowance, having a weekly allowance or a monthly allowance. Um, so I think that also impacts the teen spending habits, right? Like it's my money, I can spend all of it without any guilt. I earned it instead of like, oh, my parents gave it to me. I probably should save it and not disappoint my parents on what I'm buying. I think that kind of is like a big factor for teens with jobs.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Also, the fact of like, if you don't have your own like source of income, it's like a lot easier for your parent to say, no, I don't think you should buy that. So, like, it does make sense that teens with jobs have more freedom and do spend more on what they buy. Because for a lot of products, parents are probably like, oh, that's unnecessary, or like, you're overpaying for that. But then if you have your own job, you'll be able to be like, no, it's okay if you don't think I should buy it. I'll just buy it myself. It's like it does make sense that teens with jobs spend more money.
Yeah, I definitely agree with those points. Like for my personal experience, if I earn my own money, I just like sometimes I'd spend it to like something I want. But like I don't have like a paying job right now. So like every time like my parents give me money and sometimes I want to like spend it on something I want. And like sometimes I'm gonna be honest, it's gonna be like gaming material. And whenever I like want to like propose like such a buy to my parents, they just say no right away because they think it's just completely useless.
Hmm. And in terms of like going back to like brand names, Nike was the number one like favorite clothing brand among teens, and it's like held that spot for 11 consecutive years. So like how important like are brand names for you guys? Like not just clothing, but like in general when you're buying something.
Well, brand names symbolize quality standards, right? Even though there's a lot of videos saying like this brand is selling you cheap leather or cheap this, and then they're earning high profit margins. But like, yeah, choose from a brand list or a brand you kind of have more trust with the brand that it's not gonna fall apart after a day. Like Jackie mentioned, fast fashion, it's like Forever 21, stuff like that, and it's also even worse, like brand lists off of AliExpress, whatever. Even though they're like nice, they're kind of bad for the environment. You don't really know where they're coming from. You don't know how they're getting produced, and that's why probably brands are very important for spending money. Like I want to know what I'm actually buying, not like I buy something and it breaks a day later.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, because I don't really have that much experience outside of like clothing or like beauty skincare stuff. But I think like brand names, it's a lot more specifically for like makeup and skincare. I don't really feel safe buying like a $2 powder or a $2 mascara somewhere because like you are putting it on your face, and I don't want to like put something like it might be made fun, like it might be made in like the same factory or something else. I just like maybe it's like a mental barrier, but I don't really feel safe to put something that like is so cheap on my face, and I much rather go for like a $20 product. And also I think like that's where brand names come in, because like if it's a big brand name, you know that like they're probably not going to be putting something super dangerous in their products, otherwise they're going to be hit with like 10,000 lawsuits. But if it's like a small brand like on Etsy or like on Shein or something like that, like they it's a lot more statistically likely that they have something that's like they're a lot more willing to like be able to take that risk versus like an established brand being like, okay, we're not going to put that ingredient in because we know people are going to come at us for it. So I think that's also another big thing.
I just feel like for me at least, I usually try to spend more at established brands because I feel like they're like more credible with like their stuff. Like small brands, they might just like light up and all of a sudden might just be like involved like in like a little bit of a controversy. I guess maybe an example of that is maybe I don't know if this is a really like applicable one, but this like analogy could work with like cryptocurrency and FTX. Like they were like a they were like they were like doing well, and then all of a sudden they like were like investigating, and now they're like completely falling apart. So like those like more like established brands, I feel like there's like there's definitely less risk taking when you want to like buy something, and with those like the brands that existed for like shorter times and like kind of like blew up, like just definitely just like be mindful that there is a risk that like the brand might implement like a like an element or something that could be like detrimental.
Yeah, definitely. We can like we can transition into like, um, I know when I like in high school, like if we don't have like a lot of our money still comes from our parents, but like once we go to college, do you think you guys are gonna like change your spending habits because I guess you would be making your own money from internships or jobs or whatever? Would you guys be changing your spending habits at all in college?
I mean, it's probably gonna be the case. Even, uh, I guess, for people without jobs like me currently, probably spending habits will definitely change because you don't really have the controlling gaze of parents anymore, which constantly judge whatever you buy. Um, and also you're around people you know, people, your peers around the same age or similar interests. So that would probably also massively impact spending habits. But I guess having a job beforehand, before going to college, or leaving your parents, probably will help make your spending habits be more healthy. Um, because like it kind of prepares you, like you know how expensive stuff is gonna be because you're already buying those stuff beforehand, and you know how to control yourself because you have that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think also like if you're in college versus like a teenager in high school, like, the difference is like the stage of your life. Like right now, I'm not really thinking about me as a 23-year-old. I'm not thinking about like having my own house or like renting my own place. Like I'm not really thinking about that. But when you get into college, especially like the later years, you start thinking of like your future, which is like in a couple of years. So like right now, I feel like for most high schoolers, or like for me at least, I'm not really thinking about like that far in advance. But like when you are in college, that becomes much closer to you, and you're like, okay, I probably should start saving just like some money just in case I need to like buy something, or like I should save money for like my rent or like things like that. And like you start thinking about like your actual adult life outside of just college. So I think that's like the difference of like where you are in your life is pretty important.
Yeah, definitely agree with those points. For right now, like I just want to like focus about like doing well in school. Like money right now isn't like too much of like a rather concern. But like in college, you have like those like financial aid, like sometimes your parents will like won't give you as much like funds as you will need to like I guess financially like and economically like survive in the real world. And then when you like grow older, you're gonna be completely like financially independent. So you definitely like need to like be able to like manage your funds like differently than how you manage in high school when you get like all those like parental support and you're like still learning about like how to like manage your funds. So definitely like well it definitely like depending on like the stage in life, I predict in the future that like when I get a job, like it's gonna be way different than how I have now with like school. So yeah.
All right. Yeah, I definitely agree with Jack. I think once we go to once we go to college, and we have like we start thinking about like ourselves and our responsibilities and getting jobs, and you kind of like it's kind of like you're on your own. You don't have anybody giving you money, so you this in a sense in your head like right now like when you have money on the side you want to spend it because like even though even if you spend all this money you still have like a roof over your head, you still have food, you have basic necessities that you don't have to worry about. But that's different like once you're in college and there's like tuition if your parents don't cover that, like you have a lot more to worry about in terms of spending. So in terms of like I feel like that's gonna change a little bit for me. And yeah, I think that should we can conclude today's episode. And like what takeaways do you guys have from today?
That one of the biggest takeaways I think is the difference between teen spending and like what we usually think spending is, because teens usually spend all of what they have when they earn in their high school jobs, whatever. But I think that will probably change once um teens understand like what financial independence is, and they start paying tax and be like, okay, wait, my money has to go to this and this and this. I have to save money, blah blah. That's a lot of other things that teens have to think about when they start becoming more financially independent. So, um, one biggest takeaway is probably try to get controlled spending habits as soon as possible in order not to encounter that problem later on in life.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think my biggest takeaway is that like well, I think my biggest takeaway is that like it depends on like what situation you are in to like think about saving. So like right now, like you may not be thinking about saving as much. And but like later in the future when you get a job, you definitely need to like you need to like take saving into account, money management, so you can financially and economically survive. And now that also brings me to another point that I feel like another takeaway. I feel like having a teenage job right now could be like really like beneficial for you to like gain like an experience and like an insight into like managing your money like financially into like the future. So like also you're allowed to like a teen can like gain a lot of like experience right now to know what they can or and cannot do once they grow up to get like an actual full-time job.
Yeah, I think so. I think in line with kind of Jack's point, one of my biggest takeaways is like the difference in spending um from teens with and without jobs. And obviously like every family person is different, but just like on average the fact that like Hyman mentioned like the statistic about how teens with jobs spend like thousands of dollars more than teens without jobs. And I think that makes sense because you have more financial freedom and you're allowed to like make these decisions that like if your parents don't agree with something, you can just kind of override that decision and be like, I have my own money, I can take care of it. So I think like that's kind of a big thing. And I also think like having a job before you actually need to have a job, so like before you actually start living on your own, things like that, I feel like that would actually probably be beneficial in the sense that you would understand like budgeting more, or like how much I need to save, how much I should invest, how much like that how that works out versus someone who's never had a job before, who's never really had to have to think about money like that, and then suddenly they just graduate college and then they're like, oh, I have to live on my own now. So I think having that experience for with a job is more than just like having a job. I think it's a lot more about like having experience to do like what to do when you have money and like how do you like use that money.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway was just like having a plan to like, like knowing how much you're comfortable with saving and spending and like getting ahead of it, especially like before you actually have to make those decisions on your own where you're like living by yourself. So like in your teenage years, like you have to like even if you're making your own money, you have to know like um how much you should be actually spending and how much you should be saving just to get like a good grasp on like in life in general, because you can't be like spending all your money on in terms of like name brands. Yeah, you go for the credibility, but it's not like everything you buy can be name brand. And I think that's just a good habit to build a plan for. And yeah, with that, thank you all for tuning in today as we talk about teenage spending habits. We'll see you on the next episode of Teens for Business.